Mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along every Thursday at this time. We bring in Patrick Grimion, host of the Patty G Show. What's happening, dude?
Good morning, Brian.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good morning. Hey, I'm fine. How's the fog? Because like you get like I've been here for over an hour now. And You know how the fog moves in a little bit more as the sun starts to come up. So is it bad?
It wasn't bad going from.
But you're coming from mid city
to government.
Yeah.
I mean, so from Foster down government, it wasn't bad to get to downtown.
All right.
So it's. I mean, you could definitely. It wasn't impeding the flow of traffic. We'll say that everybody was driving just as normal at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Now that being said, we're nowhere close to water, so it tends to be worse around water.
Yeah.
Anyway, we got a couple different topics to talk about. I'll let you pick. Which one do you want to start with this morning? I know I've got my favorite, but what's yours?
Well, what's your favorite?
No, I asked you. What's your favorite?
I don't necessarily have a favorite. They're both discussing a broader topic that's impacting the whole region, the whole area. So,
yeah. All right, then we're going to start with rural sourcing because there were a lot of high hopes when rural sourcing came to town.
Yeah.
About the number of jobs that were going to be created or added to the market. And this ain't on rural sourcing. They're like, come on. So they're changing the name to Spark with a Q, which I'm going to have to old man at some point.
Spark with a Q.
SPARQ.
Oh, my God.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm not alone.
Spark-Q.
Yeah.
I'm not the only old man in the room then.
Fair enough.
I'm going to stop to the changing the name to sound kitschy, just to have your name down to one word, preferably 5 letters or less to make it hip.
But see, I think that's just a tech thing, though. Like, that's a big tech industry thing.
I know.
Like, it's quote-unquote catchy.
Right.
Logo design.
I would like it to no longer be catchy is what I'm saying.
But then nobody's going to hear about it. Nobody's going to talk about it. Right now we're talking about the fact they've changed their name to Spark with a Q.
No, I'm not. I'm talking about the fact that they can't hire people. The fact that they've changed their name is just a point of frustration. That being said, they did need to change their name.
Yeah.
Like you tell me rural sourcing is in the tech world, and I'm like, no, rural sourcing sounds like where I would buy my feed.
That is my exact thought. Rural sourcing is where they sell farm implements.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to rural sourcing if I'm like, tomorrow we'll have Ag Commissioner Mike Strain on, right?
Yeah, he probably needs
rural
a lot
sourcing is somewhere he would go in Folsom to pick up,
Or I'm heading after this.
Yeah, right. Software firm whose Baton Rouge expansion was met with fanfare has changed its name and is struggling to find workers to fill its Capital Region office. Rural Sourcing said Monday it has rebranded as SparkQ. The news release announcing the shift touted the Spark with a K or guidance the company delivers to clients during their digital transformation journeys. However, in announcing the name change, company spokesperson Tyler Pearson confirmed to the Advocate that SparkQ has hired 26 people for its Baton Rouge office and that it has not yet found a permanent space. The Atlanta-based firm said in November 2 years ago it would open an office in Baton Rouge, create 150 new jobs at a projected average annual salary of $75,000. Now, this was big news when it got here.
This was huge. We talked about it when it happened.
A lot, because this is another move towards tech, specifically hopefully in downtown Baton Rouge. 150 new jobs, 26. 2 years later, 26. 26, Patrick, I don't know if you know this. 26 is less than 150.
No,
I've been off on my math all morning long.
No way.
I'm solid on this one.
You sure?
I'm solid on this one.
Okay.
So is this the fault of SparkQ, or is this the fault of the overall job market?
I mean, I don't think you've got a company that came in saying, "Hey, we're going to create X number of jobs. We would love to fill them. Here's a starting salary."
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, can you fall? I mean, are they? I'm curious if you can get a spokesperson on from SparkQ since you've decided to name them that.
Yeah, they're probably not going to come on if I call them that.
So if you get somebody on from Spark, I'm curious what the internal hiring process is. Maybe they're getting a lot of applicants, but they don't meet the technical experience they're looking for to pay them that rate. Now, if that is the factor, how are they looking to hire employees? Are they just looking at universities? Are they just looking at the local postings where people are applying? Or are they actually going outside of Louisiana and trying to draw people in? The whole, caveat to this is that we're trying to get tech into Baton Rouge, trying to get tech into this area so people don't leave to go to Silicon Valley to be a part of tech. They don't go to Atlanta to be a part of tech.
Because there's no reason to go to Silicon Valley, and there's never a reason to go to Atlanta.
Exactly. And so now we've got to shift the narrative and say, hey, tech is here. Don't leave.
Right.
And
But
that's
al-
going to be the biggest challenge.
But and that has been something that folks like Nexus has been working on for 30 years now. And they've been doing a fantastic job. We've been in the space with like a toe in the water. And we see small wins from time to time, but this I considered more than a small win. And now 2 years later, and I just don't know if it's timing or if it's something that if you're looking to bring people in from out of town, is it that the appeal of Baton Rouge is not there? Is it that could it be as simple as 2 years ago our homicide rate was through the roof? Is that really like if you're going out and recruiting and somebody pulls up story after story after story about your top 10 deadliest cities in America, that plays into it. I don't know what the tech industry workforce looks for when looking to relocate. Cost of living's not bad here.
Especially with that type of salary.
Yeah.
With that type of salary, you can have a pretty good livable space.
I mean, aside from the world of insurance, the cost of living isn't bad here.
It's a whole different topic for a whole nother day. But within the tech space, think about it. They got 26 people and yet to find a permanent place.
Right.
A lot of tech work, depending on what it is, unless you're physically working on some type of motherboard or some piece of appliance, you can do a lot of that work remotely. So if you're hiring people and you're trying to get them to Baton Rouge, what's the incentive there if you lead off with, we offer a wider range of remote working?
Right.
So how do you, as a company, for Spark's case, transition to we want you in the office?
Well, yeah, because at that point you're getting lost in translation to say move to Baton Rouge to stay at home.
Yeah.
Why can't I just stay here then?
Right. Why can't I stay wherever I'm living right now?
Right.
If I want to live on the coast of Florida and be at the beach every afternoon and work during the day and still pull in what I'm pulling in, then that's great. But I think more importantly, it's how do we get Spark in front of people in those degree programs they're seeking at the major universities around the city? I think that for them is going to be a big play to get them before they make a decision to leave.
So, is 2 years not enough time to find 150 recent college graduates who have majored in some sort of STEM field?
I don't think they wanted to fill it with 150 recent qualified graduates. I think they were looking for people that had experience and a mix. Experienced folks and people coming out of college. Now, obviously 2 years isn't enough because they haven't done it.
Right. Well, but there's other factors in play here.
True.
Every other industry, not just STEM, not just Spark, but every industry out there is struggling to keep workers. What we've been finding, though, is it's industries where people would easily trade up. This isn't a knock on the restaurant world.
Right.
But if I'm in the restaurant business, if I'm like waiting tables, I'm probably looking for something else at the same time. I want to have the opportunity to go to something else. The restaurant's going to suffer because they're going to be hard pressed to find new good, wait staff. Meanwhile, if I've moved over to a job like at Spark, well, now we're not even moving over to a job like Spark.
Yeah, where are we going?
Right.
Where are the people, Brian?
Well, it's a darn good question. It has been since the beginning of the pandemic, or I should say since the beginning of all the checks rolling out during the pandemic. But right now, we got to break it. 646 to Talk 107.3 FM. I assume it's 646, Chuck?
It is 6:46 and 16 seconds.
See, my clock is on. Now I got to wonder what happened with ABC News.
I don't know. Is the log right?
The log is right.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's break. We'll check traffic. We'll check your money now. We'll continue talking business with Patrick Grimmy on next on Talk 107.3.
So
I'm worried about this ABC thing because I feel like there's something missing. There's no way it just wouldn't be there. Yeah.
So the guest this week, so you're not bamboozled,
Oh, thank you.
is Chad Foster with Gator Millworks.
Gator Millworks.
They do cabinetry, custom
I'm
cabinetry.
familiar with them.
Okay, good.
They why do I know them? Anybody know who Frank Grillo is? The Purge?
He was in a couple Marvel movies. He was in Captain America's Winter Soldier and Civil War. He was in this MMA series that was on Netflix.
Oh, snap. Look at this. End of watch. Gray,
Yeah, it wasn't
Intersection,
into us,
Edge
yeah.
of Darkness, Zero Dark 30.
Yeah, he's been like just kind of like a minor character in a bunch of stuff.
Well, now he's in. I've seen Purge Election Year.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
now he's in Manson. Oh, I might have to book this one next Wednesday. 10 to noon. That's 9 to 11 for us. I can get that done.
What are you booking
An actor?
for 2 hours?
No, it's 2 hours worth of a window that he does a series of interviews.
Gotcha.
This is how I've got Lance Bass on. Oh, we gotta. That's not playing until next week.
Who's Lance Bass?
When we start this podcast, the education of Patty G. When are we doing this? We've talked about this for a while.
It was supposed to be the cinematic education.
Yeah,
But
now it's
apparently-
just education. We're cutting cinematic out of it. It's just the education of Patty G. Are you familiar with the band In Sync?
Yes.
All right, we're halfway there.
He's the third most famous one in NSYNC.
Yeah. The third most. Who's second?
Patone.
Fair enough.
Who's first?
Get out.
We just canceled your segment.
And we're back. Patty G has left the studio. Scratch that. Patty G was escorted out of the building.
Yeah.
He's
Never to return.
yeah. Here's now a wanted poster. He's banned from the Guarantee headquarter building.
I don't want to do a thing where we just. Where should Spark go? They got their lease at the Fuqua building or whatever it is downtown.
Mhm.
Where should they go? What would be a good home for Spark, assuming they met all 150 employees?
Can they not fit at the Fuqua building?
I think they can. I don't know.
So why move?
That's what I say. Well,
Actually, so you want to know. So there's multiple ways to look into that. Do you base the decision on growing Baton Rouge? Or do you base the decision on what's best for Louisiana and Spark as a whole? Because if that's
growing
the case,
Baton Rouge,
okay, then you got to stand downtown.
Spark as a whole.
Ascension. No. Have you seen the shift in people moving out there?
They have 5 roads. They got 1 million
That
people in
doesn't
5
matter.
roads. Look, I like Clint Quinmall. He's a good parish president,
Yeah.
but they have overgrown with like no built-in infrastructure. Clint's going to spend the next however long he's going to remain parish president. Right now, he's trying to keep up with sewer and water.
Yeah.
Next is going to be the physical roads, and then after that, it's going to be holy crap, we're a city. Like Prairieville is quickly becoming Metairie, but Metairie had infrastructure.
True. Okay, so then if you run with the idea of downtown Baton Rouge,
Doesn't have to be downtown.
but what other building space is there to hold 150 people that's available? I mean, I'm sure we can call 10 commercial real estate brokers and they'll tell you 100, but
Where are there old businesses that can be refurbed into something new? This has been a trend over the last decade and a half nationwide.
but
And I'm gonna go right back to my go-to.
does Spark have this? Is Spark willing to invest the capital? So if I'm Spark,
Yeah, that's a good point.
if I'm Spark, technically I'm still in the testing. I'm still in the beta testing phase because if I've only hired 26 people in 2 years when my goal was to get 150, I'm either going to double down and try to hire more people or hesitantly renew my lease before I start dumping millions of dollars into rehabbing a building just to make it occupied.
That was an old warehouse next to train tracks, Cambridge, Massachusetts. It became HubSpot's headquarters, and they revamped the whole building inside and out.
Yeah, but as you're going to talk about later today, we can look at a building that was rehabbed next to a set of train tracks.
652 Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP, 66 degrees in downtown Baton Rouge. A lack of it's Mornings with Brian Haldane. We talk with Patty G every Thursday. That we were talking about Spark having trouble hiring, or rural sourcing, now Spark having trouble hiring. A lack of available workers has become a common complaint for local business leaders. The state's unemployment levels hit record lows last year, but economic development officials have said that a lack of labor is holding back South Louisiana's economy. This is not a Spark problem to me. This is an overall problem. They're just hitting at a bad time. They've gone to Augusta, Georgia, Mobile, Alabama, Fort Wayne, Indiana, and Albuquerque, New Mexico, and since 2009, right? And they've been successful everywhere they've been, and we know they've been successful because they've been able to expand to all these places. So if you can post up in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and meet your needs there, if you go to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and hire Skinny Pete, you would think you would be able to find people in Baton Rouge.
One would hope.
One would hope.
I mean, whenever you're planning your expansion, you would plan on it.
We have 2 universities and a hell of a lot of commitment to getting this particular field to its maturity.
You have a whole bunch of people behind the movement to get tech here, to get businesses here, and I feel like with Spark making the move to open an office here, they've met that need, right? They've met their requirement, or they've met their agenda of pushing to get tech here. Now, what they're facing is they made promises, or they made assertions of what they could deliver, and now Spark is firsthand experiencing.
But this isn't their fault. Like, there have been times in the past where companies throughout economic development deals have been, they've got some kind of sweet tax break, or they got some kind of offer from the state or locally, and they had requirements to fulfill for hiring and whatnot, and they just didn't hire. This isn't that.
No.
This is, they've got the now hiring sign in the window, and everywhere else on the planet, like, please take our jobs. We want you to have our job. We're hiring. We want to pay you. And it's just not getting filled. So I don't know where they turn from there. So anyway, that's just one of the 2 topics for today, because there's another one I want to talk about that you had sent over to me that I really enjoyed reading in on, the impact of large industries on small communities. This story reads, many communities have launched programs for attracting new industrial plants that have even offered inducements such as tax exemption for the rental of municipally constructed factory buildings to encourage these new industries. Other small urban and even semi-rural communities are having new industries forced upon them by the joint operation of defense needs and industrial dispersal. Now, all this is having a lot of repercussions on these communities, good and bad. What are some of your takeaways about this?
So it's like you were talking beforehand or during the break about Ascension Parish, right? With people moving.
That was during the break. So let's, okay. No, I know. But so more than just the Facebook audience knows. We were talking about if you're Spark and you're looking for a permanent home in Baton Rouge, because you're, re-upping a lease. If you're looking for a more permanent home, where should you go? When Patrick and I during the break were debating downtown, maybe somewhere off Essen. Maybe somewhere that is mid-city would probably have a few choice locations in it. And Patrick said Ascension Parish. And I said Ascension Parish is growing too fast and is already overgrown. Infrastructure has to catch up before I would look at putting something in that would have 150 employees in one building.
Right. So, and that's ultimately the takeaway from what this study had said. You've got to plan to have these big companies come in rather than just throwing something quick up and saying, great, now we can invite all these companies here. It's, well, we didn't plan to have 150 people commuting to and from every single day. And with that, if we bring 10 of those companies, now we have this massive influx of people that we didn't account for, and that ultimately is something that has to be done within city planning, within the actual planning to bring in these large corporations. You can't, as a city or as a state, make promises of attracting big organizations here when the infrastructure isn't set up for it.
We've never done that right in Louisiana. Never done that. Look at what we're dealing with right now. Looking to widen I-10. I-10 goes down to 1 lane right here.
Yeah.
That should have been solved 40 years ago. Highway 30. Thank God they're finally doing it. The Highway 30 project to widen Highway 30 all the way from LSU to the Tanger Outlet Mall. I mean, it's got to be widened out the entire stretch before they put in a new bridge, but it needed to be done anyway. But it needed to be done years and years and years ago, and you grow into your infrastructure, not your infrastructure plays catch up with your growth.
Right.
And that's something that I don't know how they handle it in other places, but here we're terrible at that.
And I think that probably leads to the fact of Spark not being able to find 150 employees within their window that they were shooting for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you've got people hearing all this because we talk about it, and it's almost like not attractive, right?
It's not attractive. I mean, there's a whole list of pros and cons, right? That would definitely be one of the cons.
Yeah. Is now if you're going to put them in downtown Baton Rouge, can the infrastructure handle that amount of commuting? To
I
and
think
from?
so. Yeah, a downtown can handle more than a lot more than we have right now. There's still a lot of room in downtown. There's also room in a number of different other areas of town.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about Essen. Who wants to go down Essen at 4 o'clock in the afternoon?
Nobody. But that's the medical corridor now, right? If you're building out a business, you know there's a lot of business around you. You could tap into that market. So why wouldn't you look at that? I don't know. There's a bunch of places around. I think they could find something that either exists and has to be kind of retrofitted back to their needs, or hey, knock it down and start over.
Yeah.
Who's on the Patty G show this week?
This week we've got Chad of Gator Millworks.
Yeah?
Yeah, we actually went to their production facility and was filming inside of where they build stuff and had one of their little automated machines moving while we were recording. It's fascinating stuff. I mean, he is from a staffing situation. They are figuring out how to use tech to not replace but supplement their employees so they can still produce on the mass scale they do.
The Patty G show is available anywhere you get your podcast and part of the Saturdays on Demand lineup right here. He's Patrick Grimion. We always appreciate the time, man.
Thank you, Brian.
Here's ABC News.